This is a kind of an unusual meeting. We're doing an ASM All Chapters Leadership Zoom meeting, and it's actually a twofold kind of meeting. One, I do want to do a quick demo presentation for those who haven't been on web meetings, Zoom meetings. That's probably not the case anymore. Everyone is. Everyone's knowing Zoom. Everyone's been on these kind of web meetings. But I want to just do a quick demo presentation. And then also I'd like to talk in more detail about what does this new world hold for us as ASM and ASM chapters in the world of this virtual environment. We now at this current time don't have the luxury of doing lots of travel, coming together. So how do we, how does the future, unfold for us? And so I want to talk about that in a little bit more detail, and then also have an interactive session so that we all can talk and discuss possibilities. Firstly, I just want to note that this topic of having this meeting is actually an outcome of one of the Board of Trustees led task forces. So the Board of Trustees actually has task forces where they're trying to study and learn about ASM. Trustees are fairly knowledgeable of ASM, but we want to continually learn about what are the most important elements of ASM and how do we make sure that we continue them and grow them. And one of them is chapters. Chapters have been always one of the core elements of ASM. And so the Board of Trustees stood up a task force, and we have monthly meetings to discuss how the chapters are doing, how the chapters can evolve in this new world, and also to make sure that we understand what are the tools, methods, and things that ASM as a society should be doing to help out chapters. So those are the things that we're trying to do and learn. From that meeting, Drew and Nicole noted that it might be actually useful to have such a meeting like we're having today with the chapter leaderships, so that we can discuss how can we use the new tools that for communication and to have these kind of chapter meetings. So that's the genesis, and that's what we're going to try to do here today. See if I can get this thing to go. Yep, next slide. So the agenda, again, the purpose of the meeting, twofold. We want to have a short technical talk as just really a demo. So I'm not going to go into a heck of a lot of detail. I actually, as the immediate past president, last year as president, I did a lot of visits to chapters, 17 as a matter of fact. I was able to go several times to Canada, to India, all around the US. And so visiting chapters, and I really enjoyed it. And so this is actually some of the slides I will be showing. There are bits of snippets from those talks that I've given before. But again, I'm not going to go into great detail, nor is it a full presentation by any means. Then I want to talk about ASM activities and our new, smaller world. The world actually is smaller today, if you can think of it in this manner, basis that we're all together. No matter where we are in the world, we can link to each other, talk to each other as if we're in the same room. So in a way, virtually, we're actually together and the world is smaller. So what does that lead for us for future possibilities? So let's talk about those possibilities. What kind of things can we do? And how can we leverage this new capability and also this new comfort level? I think previously, people would avoid and actually be not liking the idea of having a virtual meeting or being linked together on a video chat or a video meeting. But today, I think people are getting more and more comfortable with it. And I think that chapters and ASM as a whole should be thinking more about how can we leverage this new world, this new level of comfort people have, and the new technology. So that's what we're going to do, and then a little Q&A as well at the end. So again, reaching out to all the chapters in a meeting. Actually, it's 2 meetings today. We want to demonstrate RingCentral. That's the tool that we're using. It's actually a means of getting to the Zoom platform. Each chapter has a license for RingCentral and Zoom. So every chapter can do exactly what we're doing here today. Do want to plant some ideas on how ASM chapters can think about doing things differently. And again, some possibilities of possible programming and the like. I want to go right now into the demo talk. So again, it's just that, it's a demo talk. If you do have any questions on it, I'll answer any questions you have. But the purpose of the meeting necessarily is not to go through a very in-depth technical presentation. The talk really is about advanced materials and how do we get our arms around them, and how do we advance new materials, develop and implement. And it comes about relative to this triangle, relative to system level performance, leading to operating parameters and component level performance requirements that lead down to material capabilities. And so whether you're talking about building a refrigerator or an automobile or a jet engine, the things that I work on every day, you have to worry about this hierarchy of requirements. So thrust, efficiency, weight, it leads down to higher temperature requirements, higher speed, pressure ratios, and then it leads to this issue of material capabilities. And again, location-specific density or part-specific density, stiffness, modulus, strength, creep, and many other properties. But as we do that, we're looking at efficiency improvements, overall pressure ratio, system-level requirements. It does mean that these components and systems are getting hotter. So we have to have materials that can manage that kind of environment. And as we do, this little picture on the bottom left, where over the decades, you start having temperature capability increasing as we're developing new materials, or vice versa. We're developing new materials to actually withstand these higher temperatures. So right now, we're working on next generation disc materials, and some of those disc materials are not actually single materials. They're actually multi-materials built right into single components. In addition to that, besides even having multiple materials, you can have actually multiple structures within the same component. Same alloy, same material, but you can start to tailor microstructure and processing by location to enable you to get optimal properties where you need it. So at the rim of discs, it's very, very hot. We need to actually have coarser grain for creep and damage tolerance. In the bores, we need to have very, very high strength. So we'll have finer grain for burst strength.
Excuse me,
but
is there
a
way to eliminate this banner on the right side that has people's names and your photograph and so forth, because it's cutting out part of what's on the slides?
Yeah, I can do that.
I think it's a good idea.
He can do it himself. If you click on the little line on the upper right-hand corner, there's like a little dash. If you click that, it'll minimize the screen for you.
Oh, all right. Thank you. Never mind.
You're welcome.
Okay, so it's on your screen. Okay, everyone has the ability to customize their own screen. I wasn't sure if you were seeing my screen that way or not. All right, so I'll go to the next slide, if I can. Yeah, so traditional processes to actually produce materials are of all different types, things that we all know about, whether it's forging, extrusion, casting processes, even making single crystal castings, coatings, and all other types of methods. One thing that we know as materials scientists, materials engineers, that our properties of our materials and components are path dependent. So as you change your path of how you produce it, microstructures will change. Those changes in microstructures, of course, then link to changes in property. So today we're as a community, we're doing large amounts of simulation of manufacturing processes, and those simulations of manufacturing processes are leading to greater understanding of that path, and hence greater understanding of the microstructure and the material properties. This is actually seen here much more systematic-wise in a processing structure property performance diagram. So this is actually the formalized way that new materials really can be and are being developed. So if you have actually a performance requirement, which is really critical, you then can take a look at how do you go backwards, right, into the area of material selection or material design, look at processing and how those processing steps can be optimized and predicted, how those processing steps link to structure that can occur within the material, and then how does that structure link to properties, and that those properties would be on a local basis. But if you integrate the local basis properties over an entire part, you can then understand the performance overall of a complete component. So this processing structure property performance type approach is actually in a way this integrated computational materials engineering kind of framework. Also, it fits within this also initiative called the materials genome, trying to figure out how to look at the fundamentals of the material structure and then how the structure is evolved to achieve the right properties. Another attribute that we have to worry about is again, structure and how do we quantify it. And as materials engineers, we oftentimes use photo standards. That can be one way of doing it. And this nice, beautiful picture here on the left, that's a nice alpha beta titanium material, nice microstructure, bimodal. And it looks quite aesthetically pleasing, I think. I know the material kind of looks nice to me. But the question is what does it really mean? It looks nice. That's not very helpful, very subjective. So the world of materials design, and materials engineering is starting to change in a much more quantitative way, and using big data. And one of the ways of doing that is this issue of looking at this microstructure. And instead of having an analog type microstructure, let's make it digital. So you digitize the entire structure one way or another, and you can do 2-point correlation functions about that microstructure. And that can actually be represented by this image here. This is actually a statistical representation of that microstructure. So now you can start to statistically and objectively define microstructures. With that information, you can then try to understand really what does that microstructure really mean. And if someone puts a microstructure in front of you, you as a person might say, well, that looks like this, or it looks really pretty, it's a nice structure. But you now can actually have tools that are being established that can tell you quantitatively what does that microstructure really mean. This is a new world of big data, machine learning, etc. So taking machine learning tools and working with either supervised or unsupervised learning type approaches, developing models, and these models can start to look at structures and quantify them or classify them into groups. Or you can actually link it to properties and now say a microstructure really represents a property. Or clustering. You have multiple microstructures, some of them behave this way or this way, and they're in groups, and you can start to segment them. You can also take this information now of microstructures, which again, we have atlases of microstructures. They're beautiful photos. I have a lot of photos on my office wall, so I like nice photos of microstructures. But really, we need to actually try to understand what do they really mean objectively. You can get to the point of having these machine learned tools and actually have a model that actually can start to do a generative model that can start to predict what a microstructure will be. So you can make artificial microstructures. So this is actually really the next generation of where the industry is, our community is right now actually, and is continuing to migrate toward. If you're trying to look at tails of distributions, properties, such as fatigue, that's an important one, right? Everyone cares about fatigue. And oftentimes there are tails that we have to worry about. And if a tail of a fatigue capability is based on a microstructure, a certain feature, and you don't know that structure, or you've never seen that structure, how do you know that it's there? And one of the things you can do is start to use models, train them over a range that you know and have observed, and start to do predictions of what the tails might be or might look like. If you do that, and then you actually have a model that can take that microstructure and link it to a property, you then can actually start to do predictions of tails. This is actually the new world of where we're going in material design and materials optimization. So the future, modeling tools and methods, data capture, data analytics. So again, it's this ICME thing. But ICME and where we're at today is actually not really possible without a few enabling technologies. And those are really our understanding of physics-based models, and that are being developed and being enhanced today at many universities, many companies and research labs. Software advancements that are enabling us all kinds of new computational capabilities and speeds. And then new characterization methods. So EBSD and other very, very detailed atom probe tomography and other techniques are giving us new insights as to what the microstructures and material really is. And then the last is materials data. So really good inherent materials data that may be equilibrium, but in many cases it really needs to be non-equilibrium, are required for modeling and simulation. These things are all becoming available, and now that they're all becoming available now together, the world really is changing quite rapidly toward this world of computational methods. So if we do that, and we have this framework of processing structure, properties, and performance, and we then have a model-based definition for how a material behaves, we then can start looking at this in a framework where we do holistic design and design optimization. Whether, again, it's an automobile, a refrigerator, or a jet engine part. We do a mechanical design for purpose, but the material definition, it need not be a static single value like a spec minimum. It may actually have a shade of gray, basis processing space, right? It's history. How is it processed in a local region? That changes the structure, changes the properties locally. So now you can have a different material definition linked to the mechanical design. That then links to your manufacturing process definition, so you can lock it down. Component modeling and prediction, lifing analysis, cost, life cycle cost analysis, and then you can iterate and then come up with a best case component or best case material usage. So the future really is here. So advanced characterization is already here, all around us. Big data tools are here. We're actually harvesting lots more of our data and using it more. Physics-based models, data analytics, computational methods, again, are actually enabling some really amazing capabilities and outputs. One of the things I think is really important for us, though, as a materials community, is we now are starting to speak the same language as other engineering disciplines. So structures engineers, design engineers, they talk in FEA, they talk in CFD, they talk in computational language. They do analytical analysis of their designs. And in the past, we would then give them a property. We would make something, break something, and give them the property, and that's what they would use. But now, if we can actually be integrated by using the modeling tools that we actually can do as a discipline, they can go into the design process and actually be fully integrated. So now we are actually an integrated discipline amongst all of the other engineering disciplines. So that's a huge, huge change, and I think it's very, very exciting. I'm very excited about it. So now that's the end of the demo talk. So all I wanted to do was say, yes, this is possible. you can actually give a technical talk, though that wasn't really super technical, nor was it very deep, just an overview. We can do that, and we can be at a chapter meeting. We can be at anyone's office. We can be at their home. Everyone can join in, and we can then talk and listen and the like. So what does this new world of virtual or hybrid chapter meetings mean? So again, virtual, like we're doing today, everyone is separated but linked in together through this Zoom meeting. Or a hybrid chapter meeting where you actually do have a traditional chapter meeting when that is possible in the future. Chapters can come together, but at the same time, allow it to be broadcast so that people who can't make it to the meeting can actually make it to the meeting virtually. So those are the kind of things that we need to think about. You know, JP and Nicole and Drew and others, Dan Dennis from the chapter council, they're actually working very, very hard on this topic. And again, as part of the board-led task forces for chapters, I was asked to come in and try to give this talk to get people to think about it. Yet, again, JP and the chapter council have been thinking about this for a very, very long time. So the new world that we're in, which is really, really sad, it's a bad world, COVID-19, it's actually messing up a lot of things. It's actually very, very bad for many people. And unfortunately, a lot of people have lost their lives actually to this very, very bad disease. It also is causing lots of turmoil in companies. It's changing how we work, how we live. But one of the things that it has done, though, is it has actually forced, unfortunately, people to do things differently relative to getting together. So virtual meetings are becoming very common, and people are getting more and more comfortable with it. So new tools are available for this collaboration. ASM has gone out and said, hey, we need to be active. We need to make sure that the chapters are capable of using these kind of tools. And so every chapter now has a license for RingCentral. And every chapter can do this and then use through RingCentral, the Zoom platform, for these kind of meetings. So again, virtual or hybrid meetings are making the world smaller and more accessible, more collaborative. So if we want and need, we can actually call up a meeting, bring people together, have discussions, and the like. So the question here then is, how do we maximize ASM chapter efforts in this new world and these new tools that we have? And so one of the things that I would like the group to think about, and actually maybe have some discussion here in a minute, is actually chapters should not be bound by geography. Traditionally, we would think that way. And again, as outgoing immediate past president last year, I went and visited 17 chapters. So physically went all around, visited chapters, and actually it was very enjoyable. Actually, I very much enjoy going to chapter meetings. But the weird thing about it is chapters don't need to be bound by their location. With this new world of communications that we have and these web meetings, we can actually have a chapter meeting virtually or hybrid where the chapter is actually geographically located, the leadership is geographically located, but the participants can be from around the world. And that's the kind of thing that we should be kind of thinking about. So chapters could be thought about as communities of practice. So whether it's a single chapter or multiple chapters who have a common interest. So there's a common interest in these chapters. They may want to get together and do common programming on a topic, a topical area. Also thinking about chapters as nodes in an international network. So we have 88 chapters, and 88 chapters can actually now start working much, much closer together. 88 chapters have 88 programming chairs. So 88 programming chairs can start talking to each other and saying, who's doing what? How do we actually work together? So what can a virtual or hybrid chapter meeting mean? Well, again, it's potential for inter-chapter programming. So how can the different chapters link their programming together? Maybe multiple chapters want to come together and say they rotate who actually is responsible for bringing in a speaker. So maybe it's a hybrid meeting where one chapter is actually hosting a meeting and people are coming together. They can actually do it as a virtual for people from their local chapter, but also other chapters can then link in as well. Potential for focused topics in the community of practice, as I noted earlier. So if one chapter has a very strong interest in one area, maybe they want to actually emphasize that a bit more and then reach out to other groups that have this similar interest. And now that chapter becomes almost like a virtual chapter. It's no longer located in one location. It has actually lots of locations and lots of people who are interested in that topic. Inter-chapter seminar programming. So many chapters do have seminars on an annual basis. And the question about that is, can we actually leverage those seminars so that many chapters can actually link into them? One that I was actually quite heavily involved with up in the Milwaukee area, they actually have the Bergman Memorial Seminar Series every year. It's a day-long program, very well attended, a very successful seminar program. And other chapters have them similarly as well. But the issue is, how can actually that seminar series be actually made available to the rest of the ASM? And I think it's possible through this new world of virtual meetings and hybrid meetings. So inter-chapter educational programming, maybe there's one chapter who actually is really specialized in heat treat or failure analysis or some other topic. And they actually really do a really good job at teaching that course. Maybe they want to be the one that can actually teach it for all chapters. I'm just throwing it out as ideas. So just for food for thought, and if a chapter really has an interest in a topical area, but does not have a teacher to lead that course, maybe reaching out to another chapter who does have an expert in that area and who is willing to do a virtual training course, educational programming course for other chapters. So again, just food for thought. As we talked about this whole issue of communities of practice, it's actually interesting that ASM is again, a society, the Materials Information Society, but we're actually also made up of a number of affiliate societies. There's no reason why we can't actually as well, if a chapter is highly leveraged into a affiliate society, that the affiliate society can help out with the programming. And so that actually almost in a way could be a community of practice. So Nick Shirolis, if you're trying to do programming down there in Texas, maybe failure analysis is a topical area that is now it becomes a community of practice. And your chapter may say, hey, we want to do some programming in that area, but we know of a large number of other communities, other chapters, and actually the failure analysis affiliate society may actually want to be linked into this as a whole as well. So again, thinking outside the box.
Be expecting a call, Dave.
One more time?
Be expecting a call, Dave.
Okay, very good. Excellent. So again, this whole idea of local identity, each chapter does have its own identity based on the membership and the organizations that are involved with the local chapters. The one thing that I really enjoy about visiting chapters is actually seeing the local identity, the local culture. I'm actually a bit of a foodie, not that I actually make food, I just sort of eat food. But each chapter has their own identity relative to what they do at their meetings when you're talking about in-person meetings. So out in Vancouver, absolutely unbelievable salmon. That's fantastic. India, unbelievable food in India. So again, all over the world, there's local identities, local cultures. And again, that's one of the things that we should think about relative to these virtual meetings and bringing chapters together. Presenting and showcasing a chapter and the chapter's area. Presenting the capabilities, the interests of your local chapter, and also linking in student chapters to these chapter activities. And again, can try to focus on bringing students into the chapter efforts virtually. At times, it is a challenge for students to come to all the meetings, but now I think we can actually have hybrid meetings where members can come to a meeting and then students can actually link into the meeting as well. And one question is, today, when we have regular physical meetings, we look to the local chapters and local student chapters to come together. But again, student chapters might be student chapters across the world. So there may be a chapter, say, I'm going to say Pittsburgh. They may actually have students in a student chapter that they're linked together with Montreal. So why not? And so those are the kind of things that we should think about. Why not? Why do we have to be, again, geographically limited, but again, thinking outside the box of what could we do, again, for purpose that would be of interest to the members and the society. Bringing others to the chapter meetings, again, can link in other societies or other chapters from around the world. And that's, again, an opportunity for us as we go forward. Common topics of interest, communities of practice, also a big possibility for us all. The one that's actually really exciting is the issue here of bringing in expert speakers. So there's actually a tool. It used to be I think the speaker's guide. It's now been converted over into ASM Connect. And it's called the Expert Speaker Directory. And if you go to ASM Connect directories, you can find that. So all of the information about the speaker's guide is being migrated over. We're working to get all of the fellows to participate. We're also looking for experts in all of the fields to participate, where they put their name, their abstract, and information about their ability to support a chapter meeting, whether it's in person, and now we can start to link into these experts and into the fellows virtually. So where it might be difficult to get somebody, say, from SpaceX to travel all over the world, they may be busy, or they actually may have some restrictions on travel, et cetera, especially these days. So the question is, would they actually be able to link into a chapter meeting virtually? So this is another opportunity to look at bringing in world-class speakers, experts, fellows to the chapter meetings. And we're no longer restricted to when are they available, how are we going to get them across the world to our chapter meeting. We now can actually bring them to us via this Zoom kind of platform. One thing I wanted to raise as well, for those who aren't aware of it, ASM International is revamping the committee structure and really reintroducing and reinvigorating the technical committee structure. At one time, ASM had many technical committees. So high temperature alloys committee, lightweight alloys committee, and you name it. One of the strongest committees that ASM has had, for a long time has been the failure analysis committee. And if you go to that committee meeting or walk by the door of it, it would be, bulging at the seams. There's so many people in the failure analysis committee meetings. Well, that committee got so successful and so big, it's now an affiliate society. So fantastic, congratulations. One thing about it though is we have sort of forgotten our way on how to nurture and grow technical committees. So we actually, as a community now within ASM, are trying to revive that. And that's actually an interesting topic relative to our topic here today of chapters. Chapters themselves could be the focal points for technical committees. And again, what we want to do is have a process, and we have formed it, to allow groups to come together, so members to come together, assemble, and propose a new formal ASM technical committee on a topic. Again, these are grassroots-driven technical committees, a committee for purpose on a topical area. Again, it allows members to work together with other members on the topic of common interest and try to do things that are useful to them, but also to the community. So there was a recent one that was formed it started in January of this year. It's one of the first new ASM technical committees, and the technical committee is on residual stress. And so everything you want to know about residual stress, but we're afraid to ask, is being looked at by this technical committee. And so we actually have a site, so a Connect site. We are sharing documents, working together collaboratively, having meetings like we're having here today. There's approximately 35 volunteer members already in that residual stress technical committee. And that was actually without even announcing that we have one. So this is actually the first announcement that there actually is officially out there, a new technical committee on residual stress. Since January, that technical committee has been focused on 3 new projects. One, developing a session at IMAT, so trying to get a bunch of speakers, which they have already done, for IMAT to talk about the topic of residual stress. Secondly, they're also pulling together all kinds of material to establish an educational program on residual stress. What is it? How do you control it? How do you measure it? How do you optimize it? And how do you use it for benefit? And then the third, which is actually really exciting as well, the group is working on and already has a draft of an industry standard for how do you put residual stress into product definitions. So today, if you have bulk residual stress, how do you define what the residual stress you want to have as a designer? And how do you ensure that actually is that as you are receiving it from a producer? So there's already a standard that's in draft form. It's going to be a AMS standard, and so we're working with them for that. But this ASM committee is the one that's trying to do the technical work at establishing what that standard should be. I raised this topic of technical committees because maybe there's some chapters that have very, very high interest in a topical area. Maybe they want to be the nucleus to form other technical committees. And that could be a focus for inter-chapter activities, and then also growing into this technical committee itself and doing other projects within ASM. So again, yeah, these chapters, as we are all working within and trying to grow and support, are integral to ASM International, right? They've always been a critical element of ASM International. And the Board of Trustees knows that and wants to make sure that ASM is supporting all the chapters. And so hence the issue of having the board-led task force to study chapters, and this area here of having virtual meetings and hybrid meetings that chapter council has been working on is very, very important. So one of the things too is that as we start to think about these meetings and chapter activities, again, we're no longer thinking about local. Maybe we're talking about local chapters actually being webinars, and they're actually society across the entire society webinars and ways for us to communicate with each other and present information. So on a monthly basis, it's almost like we're doing a worldwide conference, one talk at a time. So if you had 88 chapters and each month every chapter had a talk, if that's how we continue to go, maybe we do, maybe we do more collaboration. But if we did that, it's like having 88 talks a month. It's like actually having a conference, one talk at a time. 88 chapters, one society. And as chapters have these kind of presentations, talks, seminars that are hybrid or completely virtual, we can post them and have the announcements available for others. And those postings can be done on ASM online membership community, and you can start to post upcoming events. So upcoming events. And actually, I find that to be really exciting because I want to go there. I want to start browsing it, and I want to understand what's going on all over the world. And it's almost like turning the dial on a channel on your TV or on the computer and say, what channel do I want to go to? Because there are so many things out there of great interest. And I am no longer limited to going to just the Hartford chapter. That's my home chapter. How can I go to chapters all over the world and find out what's going on? So these are all exciting, interesting things. And again, I just pose these items just as a way for us to have initial discussion and food for thought. And now I would actually like to open it up to you, and what do you think? What do you think?
If you have questions, you can unmute yourself.
This is Dave Himmelblau. I'm quite impressed with what ASM is doing. I'm a little concerned about with the virtual programming that if it's an interesting enough topic, you may exceed the capacity of the RingCentral license for the chapter that's doing it. But other than that, I think it's great. I think a lot of this, you know, there are things in your presentation that'd be wonderful to provide to students in high schools or undergraduates in college who haven't yet picked an area in which they want to go. And this is the sort of thing that I think might inspire them to go into our profession. We certainly need.
I agree with you. And actually, as we do more of these virtual meetings, being able to capture some of this information, either as videos, like this one actually is being recorded today, and made available for others to listen to and use, either as a means of recruiting for careers, getting students to select material science and engineering, or just, again, for food for thought for chapters, for programming, et cetera. Anybody else have any questions or comments?
Hey,
This
Dave,
is Bob.
this is,
Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess there's actually a weird protocol thing that we do on these virtual meetings. If you can unmute yourself, and if you're showing, you can always wave. I'll get, hey, I'll ask a question. Or actually, there is a way to do a virtual raise your hand on the system here as well. I have to figure out where that is, but there's actually a raise your hand item. But in any case, anyone who has anything they'd like to say, just jump on in.
I think chat may do that.
Yeah, chat actually allows you to go and send a small note, and chat's another way to communicate, and that's actually an interesting way to communicate. So actually, Nicole is monitoring the chat area. So I think Nicole, in a minute, probably will note some of the chat requests or questions. And it's a nice way to put notes in there too, because they can be archived. We can actually grab the actual questions, they can archive them. Very, very helpful, very useful. Again, interactions though is also quite nice. So anyone who has any questions they want to raise, they can just jump on in and ask the question too.
Cool.
hey, Dave, this is Danny Brinkley. I'd like to unmute myself, but I'm only on the phone.
Yes.
So you can hear me okay. First of all, thank you so much for continuing to lead our organization. Now, I've got a couple of questions, like this Zoom RingCentral stuff. I mean, it seems like a lot of benefits. I mean, like you say, you've done away with the geography problem. So you can have speakers from across the country give presentations to memberships, like in another part of the country. But what will be the benefits to sponsors? And secondly, do you know what percentage of our members are actually participating in ASM Online?
I'll take the first question first, and then maybe Nicole can help me out on the ASM Members Online item. But the first one, relative to sponsors, that's a good question. One of the things is, again, we need to be creative, right? And one of the things that each chapter has a unique flavor. There's different capabilities in each of the chapters. And if you have local sustaining member companies or sponsors for meetings, many chapters will actually allow for a 5-minute period for that sponsor to talk, right? So in a way, it's somewhat of an advertisement, right? So there's a company who comes in and says, hey, I sponsor the meeting tonight. Thank you guys very, very much. And here's who we are. This is what we do. This is where we're located. This is the kind of things we can do for you. And that still may be a very, very good way for sponsors not to talk to the same people in the same geographical area, but now the sponsors can talk to people all over the world. So this actually might be a very useful thing to link in to this kind of a programming activity. Again, that's just my off the top of my head thought. A lot more thinking than that's needed, but I think there's lots of opportunities here to leverage sponsors and get others involved. Relative to online, Nicole, do you have any comments on that?
Sure. So we have about 10% of our membership actively participating online. Now, we did just launch the online community in January, and the goal for us was to have about a 17% open rate, which most of you see a daily digest come to your inbox every day. So our goal was to have at least 17% of the people who received that to open it and engage at least with the notification that there's communications happening. And we've had a 44% open rate. So even if you've never gone onto ASM Connect physically, if you're opening those messages in your inbox, we're able to see that you at least care about the conversations that are taking place there.
That's very good, because actually I get those each day too, and actually open up, there's messages, and I think that you can actually respond to those messages as a communication. Nick's got his hand up. You're also on mute, though, Nick. Nick, you're on mute.
There we go.
There you go. Yep.
I'm kind of excited about the whole having an expert just call up and give a meeting instead of having to figure out how to get them into the next state or 15 states away. And like I said, you'll be called. And I've already got an expert on the list. I just haven't figured out who it was till today.
Yeah,
so
actually, again, there's so many experts around the world that actually have been involved with so many things.
Yeah,
especially in your field, right?
In the chapter like ours with a tiny budget, this makes it way easier.
Yeah, actually, but no one knows what your budget is. When you show your chapter meeting and you're on this virtual meeting and you're showing it and you have all of these great speakers, no one knows if you have a huge budget, small budget, medium budget. You are a chapter, and you can actually then look to get sponsors maybe to help you out with a chapter, not just from your local area, but maybe you can get sponsors from around the world now.
Yeah, that might work. Yeah, and cooperate with the nearby other ones that at some point, when the restrictions are lifted, you could have some joint meetings in between where you never thought of doing it before, but you got to know them over this chat medium. All right, that's what I had to say.
Yeah, very good. Thanks.
It looks like Bob Klug has his hand raised as well.
Hi. Yeah, I'm going to just even turn my video on here as well, if that works. My questions are more nuts and bolts, and some of it will be okay. Some of it is first off, I need to apologize for Nicole for calling her a number of times trying to get this thing functional.
That is okay.
I've been to a number of Zoom meetings. I enjoy them. They're pretty easy to operate. The more I work with them, the better I get with it. I initially thought this RingCentral was something other than a Zoom meeting, but that's fine too. So how does each chapter access this account? I don't know, maybe you'll have to send me an email on that and how to get access to it and how to operate it. And then more for David's point, your presentation, of course, is done on a PowerPoint presentation where you just share the screen.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm fine with that. I guess the other thing that pardon me?
You can do videos if you'd like videos. Again,
yeah, you can.
You can do videos. And
So you can
actually, at
do-
the meeting we had this morning, we had actually some discussion about having virtual tours. So there was a comment and question about how about tours? Well, you can go and do a video of some company or plant or something like that, but it's a really perfectly pristine, beautiful, polished video. That may not be really what is nice to see, actually. Us materials people, we like to see it like it is. And so many companies do allow tours in person, right? So chapters will go for a plant tour. But we should be thinking about the idea of soliciting companies who will be willing to take one of their experts, flip on a video camera, be linked into the meeting, and they can walk through their areas that they are allowed to walk through and actually comment about, hey, this is what we're doing. We're actually doing an extrusion operation right now. Yep, hot metal going into the extrusion liner, and we're now extruding this material. And you can see it live. You know, dirty and nasty and in full color. And that might be something that's really quite interesting for people to see and be involved with, because they may not be able to actually always go to all these places. So we can actually look at and think about different formats. Though I did show a PowerPoint, I don't think that we should be limited to that.
Well, we've talked about using some pre-recorded programs as well here on another format, you know, that uses Zoom. The other thing that I'm thinking of here is now, Nicole, you're kind of monitoring invitees who come in or attendees, so Dave doesn't have to do that work as well as trying to control the questions and answers portion.
Correct. I am helping Dave monitor what's happening in the chat windows, also feedback from attendees, just in case there's feedback. If people have their lines unmuted, I can fix that. Yeah.
Okay, so can we get information as to how best to operate that, or you need to have someone that's pretty savvy with the system, correct?
So,
One thing actually, one thing about this, I'm actually relatively new to this, but actually it turns out that even the presenter can actually be the organizer and moderator at the same time. Once you get a little bit more expertise in the use of this tool. And one of the things, I've asked the same question of Nicole, and Nicole, maybe you can comment on it, that not only do you have written instructions, but I think as well you have YouTube-like videos that are posted within ASM's websites so that you can get to it and actually see how to do it.
so we do have some documentation in the ASM Connect. And if you look in the chat window, Drew actually posted the link to that for you. So you can get to it quickly and easily. We are going to be doing some refresher training at the start of the season so that all the new incoming officers get a chance to kind of look behind the scenes with me and see how the RingCentral system works so that you're up and ready to go. If you are wanting to do something like this sooner, Bob, don't hesitate to reach out. We'd be more than happy to sit with you for a few minutes and get you acclimated to the system.
Okay, yeah, we're approaching, we're trying to put together a local meeting, Zoom meeting, the end of this month. I don't know if I'm going to have time to go through all of this at that point, but I think we're far enough along we can stagger through that one. But I would appreciate some assistance on how best to function in this system.
Sure. Why don't you give me a call early next week, and we'll walk through it together. And if you need some help in the meantime moderating, I'd be happy to help you. Just let me know when.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
If all else fails, draft a teenager. They all groove on doing these things on their iPhones and so forth, and Facebook and whatever. They're experts.
We need students. That's where the students can come in and show that they're actually the experts, right? So the students know the stuff inside and out. Every student now has been doing education by these kind of meetings. Every university effectively shut down in person, and they're all actually having their educational programs virtually. They know this stuff pretty well.
So Dave, we have about a minute or so left, and I wanted to make sure that everybody who raised their hand got to speak. So Lou Cherobi has a question as well and has his hand raised. Do you still have a question, Lou?
Yeah, thanks, Nicole. I did post on the chat there the question. I think Dave Fleming, I'm sorry, Drew Fleming addressed it here. But I wonder if there was a model or somebody that had recorded one of these RingCentral meetings recently, so that we could view it and have an idea of how it went. And so always look for those models at first, as we all do, who's pioneered this. And Drew wrote here, there is a RingCentral meetings documentation training at this location, so that he sent me. So.
Yeah, Chennai chapter just recently had a program where they actually broadcast it across the world. So Chennai chapter has it. I think I believe it's been posted post meeting. So people who want to go to it and see that chapter meeting can do that too. Maybe Drew or Nicole, you can actually give us some coordinates of how to get to that.
Sure.
They're definitely.
Dave, I'm waiting to actually hear back from that speaker to make sure that it was okay to post. As soon as that's back, I can post that.
Very good. And I know Brandywine chapter has also had several of these kind of chapter meetings as well. And whether or not they've actually recorded them for posting or not is actually, again, a question. But if they are available, it would be great to put in the same kind of place for archive, so others can see them and see what is possible.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello, this is Venkatesh. I am from ASM Chennai chapter.
Yes.
In fact, thanks for referring our name. In the first session, probably Mr. Sampath Kumar and Dr. Kamaraj might have participated. They might have briefed a lot of activities what Chennai chapter has been doing it. In fact, on 6th of June, we had a webinar on RingCentral. So that has been on modern tribological trends by Pierre Dupont, Scheffler, Belgium. In fact, tomorrow also we are having one more program on life of engineering components, role of residual stresses. In fact, I can ask our Vice Chairman, Mr. Sampath, to, open the link for everybody.
That'd be
Hello?
great. Actually, again, if we can figure out how to do posting of these events, that way, if people could see what's out there, what's happening, who's doing what, and then link into the various topics that people are interested.
Probably we'll interact with Nicole and see how it can be uploaded, because we have already done the recordings. So we will just see how it can be uploaded into the RingCentral.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Venkatesh, this is JP Singh from Chapter Council. Yep, I think we talked to Mr. Sampath last time, and he was working on getting those uploaded. So I think
that's good.
Yeah, I think it'll be great to have that available to rest of the members, especially ones who haven't participated in Zoom conferences, to see how they're done, right? And so anything you can do from your end would be great, and especially if you can open up tomorrow's session for the other members, that'd be excellent. And just another quick comment, Drew, Dave, to our chapter council. We are working on a hybrid chapter. A task force is working on putting some guidelines together for handy guidelines that will help people to operate these meetings as they try to reach out to the membership base and draw a lot of interest into a model where people can physically participate in meetings, but at the same time have a bigger reach to their membership through the virtual meetings as well. So that works already and works through Dan Dennis's task force, and there are several members from outside of chapter council who are participating in the task force, helping put those guidelines together. And Nicole and Drew have been instrumental in helping us get some of this work done in the background as well. So thanks to the ASM International team for helping with all these efforts. And I think with today's presentation, if since this is being recorded, if we could have the link to this one also sent out, because I know several folks from the Detroit chapter were not able to participate, so we'd like them to get a chance to see this presentation and then get to learn more about virtual meetings, because we want to get our boards comfortable with Zoom meetings, and as the chapter boards running the chapters get comfortable, they're going to be able to run more of these meetings and get more of the members online for future participation.
Absolutely. And JP, thanks very much for all the work you're doing, and all of the chapter council, Dan Dennis and everyone else, at trying to, again, move these things forward and make these various tools available, and the teaching for everyone of how to use these kind of tools and approaches.
Certainly, yeah.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? We're actually at
Just
probably after the hour.
Hey, this is Amy from the Oak Ridge chapter. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. My question, we have talked and we definitely like to meet locally, but we also, so we want to do a hybrid, but we want to, do the virtual. We've done one virtual room, the Zoom Central. I'm the new program chair. Who do I talk to? How do I get that so I can do a hybrid? Is that through Nicole Hale, or is there somebody else I need to talk to get information to set that up for this coming year?
That's actually an interesting one. I'm going to throw out my thoughts on it, and then Nicole and maybe Dan Dennis, you guys can help me out and correct me where I'm all wrong. A hybrid meeting, I think, is going to be, I think you need to schedule it almost like you're scheduling a regular meeting, right? Because a hybrid meeting means you're going to have an in-person meeting. But the in-person part of the group will be there, and then there will be part of the group that will be registering and signing up, but they will not register to come to the meeting. They're going to register to participate in the Zoom meeting. That actually is an important part of your announcement, and it's going to be an important part of how people register, because when you have in-person meetings, it's a bit of a hard problem, right? You have to have a location, and oftentimes you'll have dinners that go along with these meetings, and so you need to actually plan for that, and people need to pre-register for those. But at the same time, you want people to register who can't come to the meeting to register also for the web version of it. So that's one aspect of it. Once you do have the meeting set up at your venue, you do need to actually have a means of having a camera, like I have in front of me right now, and a means to get onto the internet, and then also the ability to use your chapter's license to RingCentral so that you can log into the meeting. So you can be presenting in front of a group of people, and at the same time be speaking into the microphone and into the camera, and people on the line can then also hear you and see you, and either send chats, or if it's set up this way, to ask questions live. So Dennis, Drew, Nicole, any comments? I said Dennis. Dan.
I would just say if Amy's looking for the actual logistics of setting up one of those meetings and how to get the RingCentral details, Drew and I will work with her after the meeting to get that set up.
All right, so Amy, you heard that, right? So Nicole is going to reach out to you and help you out with setting up the RingCentral part of it for the virtual part.
Yes, I heard. Thank you.
Dave?
Nicole is much more right to the point than I am.
Dave?
Yes.
This is Nasos Lazaridis from the Notre Dame chapter. We have been fortunate over the years to receive every year a visit from a trustee of ASM and have a presentation and then a meeting with the board. Will this program continue, or will that become virtual in the future?
Actually, I think it's going to be tried to be worked out to be as much as possible if meetings are held in person, as much as possible in person, as much as possible. The Board of Trustees does like to go and visit chapters, there's no doubt. When it's not possible due to travel reasons, and when we can do these things via a web meeting, we will do that too. But I'll speak for myself. I would rather elect to actually visit the chapter and be at the chapter meeting myself personally, because also I like to meet people and then understand the local area and also some of the companies or universities that are involved with the chapter. So it's not just a meeting. So on these virtual meetings, you can call in for an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours. But if you go to a chapter visit, you actually also are visiting other organizations typically along with that visit. And I think that again, speaking for myself, I would prefer making those visits. But when I can't and when I couldn't or others couldn't, I think that they would opt to use the virtual meeting when it's possible.
Okay, that's good. We were supposed to have had a trustee visit in April. Jason Sebastian was supposed to visit. And of course that was postponed, and we have now scheduled it for September. So of course we are being in touch with, keeping in contact with Jason and stuff. I just wondered if that will continue.
Yep.
One other comment I would like.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that one other comment I wanted to make was I brought it up in one of our board meetings have all been have continued with through RingCentral, and that has not been a problem. We've worked quite well. I brought up in one of our board meetings the possibility of having a virtual meeting replace the in-person meeting. And I must say that it was not received very well from the other board members. They thought that it would be very, very difficult for people to do that. I guess based on your presentation and the discussion today, I think I'm going to give it another try. But there is a barrier to be overcome, I think.
I think that there has been a huge barrier for virtual meetings. And actually, I'm raising my hand here. I had the huge barrier. I'm thinking like, no way, it's not going to work. It's not really possible. You can't communicate with people well enough. And actually, I think that barrier has been broken down. It's been broken down by me, for me, and I think a lot of others too. And I actually used to think too, like virtual training. I mean, actually right now, all universities are doing educational programs by virtual classrooms. And that was almost thought of as unheard of before. And at times you do it, it would be kind of a novelty at best. So, but I think today, because everyone is being immersed in this new virtual world, people are becoming much more common and more comfortable with this. And I think everyone should try to raise it again to their chapters, where once someone would say, no, it's not a good idea, I actually think it's a really good idea to raise. Because a lot of times people can't come to meetings because they're either on travel, but they could actually link back into their chapter meeting, or they're across town. If you're in LA, across town means a day's travel. So you can't get there. So linking into these meetings via the RingCentral, it does make sense. And I think people are thinking differently. I really, really do.
Okay, thank you very much.
Dave, we have a couple of questions coming in the chat box, so I just want to read them out loud. One was basically, I think, directed more towards me, so I'll ask it and then I'll answer. The question was, is it possible that we can have a trustee visit on a monthly basis, something virtual like we're doing now, and just pick a day and see if we can schedule something for all chapters to attend? And to that suggestion, I wanted to say we are looking into having coffee talks that would run through the ASM Connect site. And we're just looking at the details on that. So that suggestion is a good one, and one that we have been exploring here as well. The second question for you comes from Ontario. And the question is, well, first they say thank you for a great presentation today. They really appreciated having you, you put this together. And they'd like to know, based on your experience from chapter visits within the last year or so, could you share some of your unique memories on how the chapters ran their events. Which one stood out to you? Is there anything that could benefit some of the chapters on the call?
Yeah, okay, that's a good question. Again, all chapters are unique, and I really, really like visiting chapters because they are so unique. And the issue with chapters that are really, really successful and do well are ones that actually have a strong linkage with their membership and the membership companies and universities. I think my most memorable one, I think, was Pittsburgh. I have to say, I went to Pittsburgh, and at 6:30 in the morning, I'm out on a steel line watching U.S. Steel rolling some blooms out, and that was pretty cool at 6:30 in the morning. At 8:30 in the morning, I was at Carnegie Mellon. At noon, I was at University of Pittsburgh, right across there. And then in the evening, I was at the chapter meeting. So it was a very, very, very busy day, a very long day, but it was a day that I found to be extraordinary. And the interest of all of the groups in ASM, into ASM, and also in general on the materials, activities, and functions. Those are the kind of chapter visits I find to be very, very interesting, very successful. If chapters do have trustees come visit, you should absolutely put them to work. There is no doubt. I actually enjoy chapters that I'm actually very busy at, and visiting and talking about ASM, what ASM is trying to do, what the ASM's futures are, and what are the things ASM can do to help out members. I really enjoy that. And so if a chapter invites a trustee and doesn't get them out to visit one of the companies, several companies, or to a university, then I think the chapter has missed out an opportunity. Again, it's something that if the trustee is already there, put them to work and let them actually help out, talking to your membership.
Hey Dave, this is Richard Mingers, voice from the past here.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing very well indeed, thank you. Retirement is great. Anyway, a couple of comments for you. First of all, I think your idea of having shared chapter meetings is an excellent one. I just make the point that one of my alumni associations has been doing that since the pandemic, and the meetings have been really excellent. So just adding credence that really can work and be very powerful and bring a lot to the table. Second thing I was wondering is, part of local chapter meetings are going around and visiting local companies. Now, obviously, in this new situation, that's going to be difficult for quite some time. Do you ever see the possibility of using some of your contacts, whether they be at Laddish or wherever, of doing a brief virtual tour? And I'm not looking at a really nice polished video. You know, I'm just looking at somebody wearing a camera and saying, you know, this is the ring rolling operation, or this is the isothermal press, or whatever. I think that could be a big opportunity to share technology with a whole load of people across the country and across the world.
I fully agree with you. The whole idea of doing virtual tours where a person can be narrating the tour, having a camera clipped onto them, and they walk through and see things live. Yeah, and not, it doesn't have to be polished, and actually sometimes it's preferred not to be polished, not a beautiful video. You want to see it like it is, right? This is how it is, and this is how things are being done. And I think actually companies would, be interested in those kind of things as well. So I think that's an opportunity that we should try to do outreach where companies have allowed physical tours. Why would we not try to reach out to those same companies and say, can you and would you think about this virtual tour type of a framework? So Richard, I really do think that's a good idea.
Okay, good. Good to chat, Dave. Thanks for the presentation.
Sure. Thank you. Hopefully the early charts weren't too silly for you.
I was just thinking, Dave, I could have pulled out a presentation somewhat similar from 20 years ago.
Yep, but
Right.
hey, we're doing it, man. It's all
We're
there
doing it.
now. It's all there.
It's great. Take care.
Thank you.
Hi, Dave. I have a
Hello.
question. This is Carlos Carrasco calling from Mexico.
How are you?
I am okay, thank you. Yourself?
Very good.
Hola, Nicole. Good morning. We are in the process of changing the board at the chapter down here. I'm actually the former president. And when we changed the board, the officers here, we decided to have, without knowing that the ASM now have a technical committee, we have create that inside the chapter. So the question I have is, how can we get in touch with the technical committee at the ASM to help us on to have presentations or topics to talk about, or even speakers for us?
That's a good question. And so Nicole can help us out on this one too. As we start to have more technical committees starting and formalizing, again, the one that I mentioned about earlier, which is on residual stress, that committee is actually out on one of the sites, right? The community sites. It's listed there, and not everyone, I think, has access to it, but it's there. The committee has access to all of the material that's within that location. But I think there should be a way to send a query to any of the technical committees and say, is there a ability for that technical committee to provide a talk for a chapter? So that might be something that is another avenue or resource for the chapters to bring people together, bring topics together for programming. If you've already started to do technical committees within your chapter, and there's a very, very strong activity going on a technical side, such as maybe additive manufacture or some other technical topic, maybe there's actually a need for a technical committee. So maybe a section of your chapter could be the nucleus for this ASM International new technical committee. I hope that helps. Hopefully that answered the question that you had.
Yes, it does. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions?
Dave, it looks like it's gone a little quiet on the chat box as well. So you did a great job.
So Dave, just one other quick suggestion. When you're asking for questions, what I found also useful is to have somebody put on their video and just hold up their hand so that you see that Nicole or whoever is running the meeting sees that there's a question out there, rather than just using the chat box all the time.
Yep, there's two aspects. One, the chat box is nice at times because people can write in notes, and all those notes can actually be captured. It makes it easier for note taking. For when the topic is really, really exciting, and I've had meetings that have been very, very exciting, and like 19 people want to talk all at once, having people have their video on so that you can see each other and then do the raise of the hand thing, it does actually help out in the communication channel when you have a virtual meeting. Good point.
Thanks.
There is functionality within the software to do digital hand raises too if you have a very large crowd.
Yeah, you get the emoji of the hand going up. All right, if there's no other questions, I do want to thank everyone today for coming to this discussion. Again, it wasn't meant to be a presentation per se. I did do a demo, a few slides, but again, it's meant to demonstrate what could be done and to help everyone think about what's the art of the possible. What could we do? And having regional, global joint programming, linking out to more people, the issue of doing virtual tours, and again, linking into fellows from around the world, and also having your trustee visits. Again, having them in person in the ways you can have them, or if not, virtual as well.
I'd like to encourage you all to take the time to use ASM Connect, the chapter leaders group, to go ahead and have additional communications around what Dave presented today. I'll be posting the recording to that site as well, so you have it for future reference. And just use that tool to help you guys continue to communicate and work together and do some of these collaborative efforts.
All right. Thank you. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Dave.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.